Physician-assisted suicide is defined by Merriam-Webster as suicide by a patient facilitated by means or information provided by a physician who is aware of how the patient intends to use such means or information.
Physician-assisted suicide and euthanasia are not the same practice. PAS requires that the physician provide the patient with the means to take their own life by prescribing a lethal dose of medication. Euthanasia entails the physician acting for the patient through a medium such as a lethal injection. The difference lies in who administers the lethal component.
In England and Wales, there is a possibility of up to 14 years imprisonment for anybody assisting a suicide. The law in Canada is almost the same as in England. It is a crime to assist a suicide, punishable by up to 14 years imprisonment. France does not have a specific law banning assisted suicide, but such a case could be prosecuted under 2236 of the Penal Code for failure to assist a person in danger. In Mexico, on April 22, 2008, the Senate voted 70-0 in favor of legalizing passive euthanasia. This concept allows doctors to withdraw life-sustaining medication from patients, but not to, for instance, administer poisons. The Belgian Act legalizing euthanasia for competent adults and emancipated minors was passed on May 28, 2002. On February 13, 2014, Belgium legalized euthanasia by lethal injection for children. There's no age limit to minors who can seek a lethal injection. Parents must agree with the decision, however. There are serious questions about how much pressure will be placed on parents and/or their children.
There are currently 5 states in the U.S. that have legalized physician-assisted suicide, beginning with Oregon in 1997, followed by Washington in 2008, Montana following a court case in 2009, Vermont in 2013, and most recently, California in 2015. At the moment, there are no federal regulations on physician-assisted suicide.
I would have to say, as a pharmacist, that I really could not advocate physician-assisted suicide. I realize that many people feel it's their life and it's their call, but there are alternatives. Palliative care is one option. I mean, a combination of counseling, painkillers to help relieve stress and pain of not only the patient but the family. There's hospice care, and I just don't feel that it's a person's right to take their own life, I feel.
Though the autonomy of a patient have to be respected, people who argue against physician-assisted suicide say that it's morally wrong, because it's not only letting someone die, but it's similar to killing, which is not justifiable.
Physician-assisted suicide could potentially guilt sick patients into taking their own life if they feel like they are a familial or financial burden.
Physicians can make mistakes, just like any other professional. Therefore, another ethical and political argument against physician-assisted suicide is that the state should have an obligation to protect lives from these inevitable mistakes, avoiding the practice of assisted suicide to be performed.
The Hippocratic Oath states, "Above all, I must not play God." Physician-assisted suicide goes directly against this statement by enabling patients to take death into their own hands.
I feel that that's God's right. God gave you life, and it's His decision when it's time for it to end. You can be kept comfortable and, just about pain-free, but to follow through with the suicide, I cannot condone that.
As a respiratory therapist for over 30 years of my career, I watched patients and families suffer with debilitating lung diseases, whether it be a chronic disease such as COPD, emphysema, that incorporating asthma, chronic bronchitis, or whether it be a terminal illness as a cancer diagnosis. These patients and their families dealt with such pain, watching their loved one try to breathe and catch a breath, and when patients would ask, please just let me go. It was a very hard thing to watch. You wanted to help, but you could only do so much.
Does a nation have the ability to deny a patient the opportunity to die with dignity? Some patients may not be able to commit suicide on their own because of their unique situation. Could this be seen as a form of discrimination against the elderly and the weak?
Opponents of physician-assisted suicide often argue for the possibility of abuse. They cite the likeliness that elderly and low-income patients may be pressured into physician-assisted suicide rather than pursuing long-term or expensive treatment. However, reasonable laws can and have been passed in states like Oregon that provide for specific and numerous requirements needing to be met prior to any sort of physician-assisted suicide prescription of lethal drugs.
I am not here to judge how much pain or suffering anyone is going through, and I believe that we should be able to take the steps with our physician and our families and end our struggles if we feel that is the right time for us. These are problems in our society that until you've actually witnessed it and seen it, you cannot judge the pain and the amount of suffering these patients go through.